Nick speaking, and welcome to this video. Right, Army Evolution, and today I want to talk about my Flayed One army, also known as the Flayed Necrons. So this is a themed army using 60 Flayed Ones. I'm going to go through sort of the history of how I did the army, why I did the army, how the army has changed over the different editions and the different rule books, and how I've adapted the army and how it's evolved into what I currently use. Hopefully this video will be interesting to you. Hopefully maybe you'll learn a few things, maybe about list building, maybe about themed armies, maybe even be inspired to do your own themed army at some point. Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. We're talking about the old Necron codex, what I like to call the Black Codex. And in that codex, I used to have 10 Flayed Ones because my aim was to have a unit of everything that was in that codex. So I had 10 Flayed Ones. I used to play them. You know, they did okay. That codex became very old, became 10 years old, and I think most people, most Necron players, let's say, had the wishful thinking that when a new codex eventually came, Flayed Ones would be troops. Now, the codex came and that didn't happen. I specifically want to talk about just the standard codex, no sort of Forge World editions and stuff. You know, I'm talking about just the standard codex here. So yeah, they weren't troops, and I think that was a bit disappointing. So they actually made the rules worse, even though they produced some brand new models, which was a slightly odd move. No one could really comprehend that. Not only that, the new models, well, in my opinion, I didn't actually like them. I didn't think they were that great looking compared to the old ones. So anyway, during the time of the 10-year span with the old codex, I desperately tried to adapt my tactics to try and get Flayed Ones in. Flayed One sort of only became useful as just a very small 5-man infiltrating sort of distraction unit. They worked okay, but you know, they didn't really do much. So the new codex came out. Obviously I played with it, had some good games with it, and then decided to make my Necron Learning Curve series. Now in that series I made the video about the Flayed Ones. And then in that video, of course, I basically said the Flayed Ones weren't very good. They weren't worth using, they weren't worth having, and made that video, watched the video back, and thought to myself, surely Flayed Ones are usable. You know, I really liked the model, and I took it upon myself to make a Flayed One army work, like a themed army based around just Flayed Ones. That was my vision. Now I only had 10 models at the time, so I had to beg, borrow and steal to get myself 60 Flayed Ones. A lot of these Flayed Ones here, the claws have been converted. I used some Hormigaunt cloths and some green stuff. I have videos all in the archives about my Flayed Ones, so just search IDICBeer Flayed Ones, IDICBeer Flayed Crons, if you want to see them battle reports. It should all come up. So yeah, I basically managed to get hold of 50 more Flayed Ones, and then I spent a whole month painting the Flayed Ones. Again, that's in the archives. I think it was called Flayed One November. If you look that up, you'll be able to find me painting 50 guys in a month. So I managed to get them all painted. As you can see, I've got different skin types. So I've got on the left there what I call the Blood Angel skin, like human type skin. And then here we've got the Orc skin, some green skin, and right at the back here we've got some Tau skin. And that's how I was differentiating my units. So I had a work in progress idea of a list. The core thing for me was to have to basically fill the elite slots with Flayed Ones maxed out, the maximum amount, and that is units of 20. And of course we weren't talking about dual force organisation charts or anything in those days. So you could basically, just looking at 3 elite slots and maximum of 20 in each. And that's where I started the list. Now from then on, my initial work in progress of that list was I wanted a visual of this army. I was visualising 60 Flayed Ones. I thought, how can I make that army just look really, really cool on the table? And I did that by my initial idea of having the 60 Flayed Ones backed up by 60 warriors. I thought, how awesome would that be? 120 guys on the table. So my very first list was Nemesis as the HQ, 60 Flayed Ones. I'd have one big group of 20, 60 Flayed Ones. Then I'd have one big group of 20 warriors with Nemesis joined to them, and then 4 squads of 10 warriors. And then Scarabs in those days were really good, so I went for Scarabs. They were quite cheap. I ideally wanted 2 squads of 10 Scarabs, but I had to cut it down. I was on about 8 and 9 Scarabs, and that came to 2,000 points. And that was my starting list for the army. Now, I think the key thing about having a themed army, especially when you want to max out on stuff, is it can be quite hard to do a themed army in the lower points range. Because if your restrictions on yourself is to take the maximum amount, in this case 20 Flayed Ones times 3, 260 points for each unit, takes up a big chunk of your points. So if you say only playing 1500 points, you don't have many points left for all the other stuff. So themed ones list, to be fair, tend to work better at higher points level. Of course, yes, I could reduce the quantity of Flayed Ones, but then it almost takes the theme away from them. So that was my first work in progress, and it sounded, and visually I thought that would look really awesome. But really thinking about it, with Flayed Ones as bad as they were, because in those days they were bad, I decided that all that would happen is my Flayed Ones would just get shot up. So I had to come up with a different list to that. So I quickly disregarded that list, and actually, in fact, I never played that list. So the next list, which we're talking about, the 6th edition rulebook here, this was the main list that I was playing at the beginning, and I brought in Imhotep into the list. Because he could control night fight, and having my Flayed Ones and the rest of my army under darkness for a good amount of turns was really, really useful. I wasn't going to have much shooting in the army, so Imhotep was fantastic back in those days. Obviously things have changed. So I had Imhotep. I went for a good amount of warriors, but I decided to go down into units of 5. So I basically spammed 5 units of 5 warriors, just to give me some good scoring options. And then we went on to the fast attack, maintained some Scarabs, a unit of 7 and 8, but I added in the Wraiths, 6 Wraiths. Because of the points restrictions that I only had like 3 whip coils on there, but it was the best that I could do with the points. And now all of a sudden I had a plan for this army. So the plan would be to infiltrate all 60 Flayed Ones, try to get them as close as possible. And running alongside that, I had to have fast moving units, something that I could deploy and then they can move 12 inches up, and all of a sudden you've got 60 Flayed Ones and loads of other units coming in your face. And that is what the Scarab Swarms did, and also the Wraiths. They could all move the 12 inches. I would have a Destroyer Lord. I did have a Destroyer Lord joined with the unit of Wraiths for the benefits. In those days you could obviously put the Destroyer Lord up the front with his 2+ save, wound allocate, etc. So that was the plan basically, charge forward with everything and just keep the warriors small and spammed out to take objectives at the back. And then Imitek doing his lightning strikes and also keeping Night Fight up to try and protect myself as I went in. And that list right there was very, very successful for me. Like I said, check out some of the battle reports. Okay, I'm not talking about a competitive environment, just gaming with my buddies, but even so, the performance I was very, very pleased with. There was one thing that I did note about the army though, and that comes to light in the future when I redo my lists. But what I did note was that pretty much all of the time, at least one unit of Flayed Ones did nothing the whole of the game. There's either just not enough room on the table for them to get into position, or they were just totally ignored by my opponent, or potentially they just sat on objective the whole of the game. 20 Flayed Ones just sat on objective. So I did notice that although I was getting good use from at least two groups of Flayed Ones, there was one group of Flayed Ones which pretty much never got used in the games. Anyway, we move forward as 7th edition main rulebook came out. So when this rulebook came out, I decided that I really wanted to push forward with the advancement of the front ranks as such. And as I said, my original idea was to have 2 squads of 10 scarabs. So what I did is I reduced the amount of warriors that I had, made the amount of units smaller, and I put more points into the force at the front. So I increased the scarabs to 2 units of 10, and then I increased all of the wraiths to have whip coils. Maintained Destroyer Lord and Imitek, they were still doing what they were doing very well. And increased, as opposed to having Imitek joined with warriors, I decided to give him some immortals. So I went for a small group of immortals and had a few units of warriors just surrounding him, just to protect him basically. And again, I mean, it was fairly minor changes, but it definitely did work quite well, and just having those larger units of scarabs was really, really useful. So that is where I got up to then, until the new codex came out, the new Necron codex. And that's where things really, really did change, because Flayed Ones became much, much better. They weren't troops anymore, almost not troops still, but increased number of attacks, 5 attacks on the charge, and they also have shred, so they can re-roll to wound. Very, very useful. Not only that, of course, we've got the Decorium within the codex, which basically means that I can now give my Flayed Ones reanimation protocol on a 4+, maintaining the Decorium rules, and they can still infiltrate. They have the 5 attacks on the charge. They're very survivable, very good in close combat, and just overall became awesome. And I was very, very pleased to see that new codex come out, making my Flayed One army, let's face it, pretty powerful. An army that wasn't supposed to be very powerful. This army was designed specifically to make a bad unit work on the table, but now all of a sudden, like I said, my army has become very powerful. But I still had to adapt my army to the new codex. So let's have a look, see how I did that. Okay, so a few things. Of course, we had to go with the Decorian to make sure that my Flayed Ones had their reanimation protocol. Very, very useful. It also meant that I could drop Imitek from the list. Imitek became pretty much useless, especially in this army. I mean, I took Imitek originally, like I said, to give Night Fight to the army, and Really, to be fair, with the RP role that I have, I didn't really need that anyway. So there's a lot of points in Imitech, so they did free up some points. I also removed the Destroyer Lord from the list mainly because I couldn't get him in with the restrictions of the Decorium / Reclamation Legion. So I dropped both of those, and I filled the gap with an Overlord, just a very basic Overlord with no upgrades, freeing up quite a number of points, and there's a reason for that which I'll talk about in a minute. So in the Reclamation Legion I had a basic Overlord, had 5 Immortals for the Overlord to join. And then went for 2 squads of 10 warriors. I wanted to have a decent sized warriors just to protect the Overlord with the Immortals. And then running alongside that would be the 3 Tomb Blaze, just very basic Tomb Blaze, just with Shadow Looms. And that would make up my Reclamation Legion, along with the 60 Flayed ones. But we are no longer restricted to just 3 elite units. In actual fact, you can have up to 10 auxiliary units in the Decorium. So now I can split my 60 Flayed ones down from 3 squads of 20 to 6 squads of 10. And that is a lot more powerful. Gives me a lot of infiltrating facilities. Gives me a great maelstrom objective taking abilities, and if I do have a unit which is just sitting on objective, for example, it's only going to be a unit of 10, so I'm not going to be wasting Flayed ones as frequently. Like I said before, I was wasting pretty much 1 unit of Flayed ones. Having multiple units of 10 is a lot better for me. And of course, Flayed ones do have the option potentially to deep strike in as well, so you'd always have that option, and I have done that on occasion. So that's what I did with the Flayed ones. And then I obviously previously was using Wraiths and Scarabs. The starting point for me was to have 1 unit of the one formation of the Canaptic Harvest formation. Now that gave me my Wraiths, and it also gave me some Scarab Swarms. But in this new codex, although Scarab Swarms still very good, they've gone up in points quite a lot. They've gone up 5 points a base. So that's a huge amount of points now. We're looking 10 Scarabs were 200 points. And now you do have the Tomb Spider that you've got to take within that formation. So I decided to minimise the amount of Scarabs, and as opposed to using the Scarabs to actually go out and attack, the Scarabs took more of a defensive role along with the Tomb Spider, and then let the Tomb Spider generate Scarabs each turn to build up the Scarab unit. And that's why I needed to free up points at the start of this army list with the Overlord, because then I decided to take 2 Canaptic Harvest formations. So effectively replacing 2 big squads of Scarab Swarms and 1 unit of Wraiths with 2 big units of Wraiths. And these Wraiths now, if you're not aware, are also a lot better than they were, because they've gone up in toughness, they've gone up in the amount of wounds that they can have. They've also changed to beasts as well. So the basically 2 units of Wraiths are pretty much the equivalent of 1 unit of Wraiths and 2 units of Scarab Swarms. And it gives me the option also to obviously build up 2 units of Scarab Swarms as well, as I advance and generate from the 2 individual Tomb Spiders. So that is my current list. That's how I'm using the army. As I said, it's been very, very successful. It's a lot of fun to play. What I find very rewarding from the army is playing an assault army from what effectively is a shooty army. Necrons are shooty. All I have in this army is 5 Immortals and 20 Warriors who basically sit at the back and take objectives. Everything else moves forward and is looking for the assault. And it's a really, really fun army. And it's a themed army, and I think the great thing about a themed army is it pushes the boundaries of your tactics, pushes the boundaries of making your army work because you're putting your own restrictions on it. But it's also incredibly fun seeing that your favourite units on the table that you want to play regardless of the rules. Very, very fun from that point of view, and also makes your army very unique, because I can tell you, no matter how good Flayed Ones are now, there aren't many people around who are going to be playing 60 Flayed Ones on the table. You might find, 20 or 30 Flayed Ones, but 60 Flayed Ones, I very much doubt you'll see anyone play those. And that's great. So having your own unique army, and a themed army, a type of army that when your enemy sees it, they're not going to know what your tactics are. They're not going to know how your army works. And that's also a great upper hand to have on the table. So that is the evolution of my Flayed One army. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope you got something from it, and maybe even inspired you to do your own themed army. It is a lot of hard work getting all the models together, but as long as you're not in any rush and you're willing to take your time. I think it probably took me about 6 months to get all the Flayed Ones together, but it's well worth it, and I've had a lot of fun with this army. I definitely recommend you having a look at picking your favourite units from your codex and maybe trying to make a themed army from it, having the maximum amount of units that you can get on the table.